Clarissa, we've got another case of someone using their trucking business for nefarious activities. Talk to us about what's going on with this representative from Roadrunner or ex-Roadrunner employee.
Bad things happen in the industry, and in this case, it was two former Roadrunner employees that kind of developed this scheme to, defraud the company out of business. And in this case, his Johnny Bradford, was a truck driver and worked for the company, and he collaborated in a scheme with his dispatch manager to use like ETS checks, that for different services, for repairs and everything. But in exchange, he would wire that money back to the dispatch manager. So it was kind of like a kickback where it was actually for like legitimate, it showed that it would be for legitimate purposes, but in fact, it was being used to, fund their lifestyle and pay their own bills instead of the money going to Roadrunner.
So talk to us a little bit about how much was actually defrauded from this scheme and what the process going forward now looks like.
Sure. It was over $112,000 that they, over like a 2-year period, that they were able to, before the fraud was discovered. And Amy Shepard, who they say that she was, the brains behind the operation, she was sentenced to 18 months for her role in it. And in this case, what the judge found was that Bradford's role was very small compared to hers. And so the maximum sentence in this case could have been up to 20 years for wire fraud. But the judge said, he sentenced him to time served, and that he would be on 6 months of home confinement and 3 years of supervised probation for his role in the scheme.
So, Clarissa, the indictments in this case came down just about a year ago, and it's taken now over a year for the sentence to come down as well. For these folks who were involved in this, is this a typical timeline for a fraud scheme to have that long of a process from indictment to sentencing, or was this longer than normal?
No, this is actually pretty quick, compared to some where it takes years, because in this case, it was pretty easy for them to track how the scheme worked. In some, it's years long. This was a pretty short time frame that they had to look at it and, and see what was, being done here. So in some cases, it takes years to do it. But but in this case, it definitely was a shorter time frame.
And so for the folks who were involved in the scheme who maybe got defrauded out of their funds for Roadrunner itself, was there any money promised in restitution or anything like that?
Yes. And it's the judge ordered that Amy Shepard and Bradford would be ordered to pay over $112,000 to the insurance company, that Roadrunner's insurance, as well as Roadrunner itself. So yes, that they are been ordered to jointly and pay restitution to the victims in this case.
So, Clarissa, we're going to go ahead and change topics now and jump into kind of the bankruptcy space as we're moving into the start of 2024. Have we continue to see the freight recession have any bigger bankruptcies, or have anyone continue to drive them out of business? I haven't seen a lot coming out from you lately, so I can only assume that things are starting to slow down, correct?
Well, I'm working on a couple of things, just in the space, kind of working on a bigger picture into the bankruptcies. And we're seeing more logistics companies like brokerages actually filing for bankruptcy, where typically it's been more trucking companies that have been filing. And we're seeing in the brokerage world that's occurring as well. So I'm looking at a bigger piece into why that is occurring.
It's going to be interesting to see. And the other thing that you're working on is involving Slink.io and their former CEO, Chris Kirchner's trial starts coming up tomorrow. What can you tell us about that case going forward?
Sure. It's been everybody has been close in the freight world has been closely watching this case. And Kirchner is, slated to go to trial for his role in a $25 million a fraud scheme. There's allegations that he defrauded Slink and investors out of $25 million, and that he used that money to purchase a 15 to $16 million plane, and various expensive watches that I had no idea what they even were, and had to look them up, to even know what they were, and and other purchases, including his home and vehicles that the government has seized during a raid, early in 2023. So that is definitely something that the freight space has been closely watching.
Yeah, we've been paying pretty close attention to it since the news broke. And for the trial, we're looking at a true criminal trial with prosecution and a jury going forward. And how long of that process could we expect to take?
Sure. I looked up the case this morning, and there's definitely an extensive, like a list of people that are evidence and people that are going to testify in this case. So they really have, are saying weeks. It could be weeks, this trial going forward. But the judge, there's been efforts to delay it multiple times. And so, even as this morning, I want to make sure that nothing had happened over the weekend to delay it again, because Kirchner had sought to have Slink pay the legal fees for his case. Instead, he is using a federal public defender in this case, but he had argued that in his contract there was a clause that allowed him to have his expenses in any illegal fights going forward. But like the naysayers say that that it didn't, in an alleged fraud case, that he didn't have protection, and like in that as far as having a legal defense. This was in like any other type involving the company, but it didn't apply to alleged fraud.
It's going to be interesting to watch how this continues to shake out. And Clarissa, we thank you for covering it. If folks want to keep up with your content and make sure that they are up to date on the latest goings on in the space, where can they go to do that?
Sure. Reach out to me at chawes@freightwaves.com, or on X at @cage_rider. So I'm always looking for new leads and tips and anything. So yes, give me a shout.
All right, Clarissa, thank you for that. And we will keep an eye on this as it continues to develop.
Thank you.